be great if I had a rear-wheel drive car. Guys, it's been a while since I featured the Civic, but I reckon it's about time that we talk about this car again. That didn't sound good. So it's been a year since I've owned this car. I've driven it a lot, and if you've already seen the title of my video, you'll know that due to some unexpected events, I've had to rebuild this engine 3 times over the 1 year. So in this video, I want to talk about what happened to my car, why it happened, and what I think about this car after 1 year. And what better opportunity to talk about these things whilst I'm on a road trip with my friends at the end of the year, where the temperature outside, 20 degrees, is beautiful. But before I talk about what happened, I want to talk about what I did to the car since my last video. So, the last time I made a video about this car, I showed you guys that I got the car tuned and it was making a lot more horsepower. And after that, I let my friend drive the car. This friend of mine, he's pretty experienced, but he's never driven something that has such short gear ratios and a short throw. So when he was driving it, he actually did the money shift from 3rd to 2nd at 9,000 RPMs. And you can imagine what that would do to the engine. I calculated that the engine over-revved and went all the way to 12,000 RPM, which exploded the pistons. It made a hole in the cylinder wall, and it meant that I needed a new engine. So that's what I did. I bought another K20A from the FD2, from another FD2 from Japan. And whilst I was doing that, I decided to upgrade the engine as well. So I got high compression pistons, upgraded valve springs, and also a block guard. I did a whole bunch of stuff, not really to increase power, but what I wanted is to increase reliability. And after all that, got the engine tuned again. Now it's making around 270 horsepower, which is a lot considering that I'm still using the same cams, I'm still using the same headers, because I want the normal day-to-day drivability. And I'm very happy with the performance of the car. So why did I have to rebuild the engine a 2nd or 3rd time? Well, that is kind of a mystery to us. So my car was drinking a lot of engine oil, like a lot. If I just drive back and forth to work, which is about 100 kilometers, and I'm not even caning the car, I'm not driving it hard. By the time I get home and I check the dipstick, I would have to fill up about half a liter to 1 liter of oil every single journey. And clearly something was wrong, because the exhaust pipe was turning really black, the bumper was getting smoked, and so I had to rebuild the engine. And just fixing that problem my engine builder had to rebuild it twice. The first time he did it, he thought the valve guide was okay, so he didn't change it. He only changed the valve seals because he opened up everything, looked at the piston rings, and everything looked okay. The piston compression test seemed okay as well. So he didn't want me to waste money. So he just suggested, okay, after doing all that, I'm only gonna change the valve seals. And after he changed the valve seals, it was still drinking oil. And that's when he decided, okay, he needs to rebuild the engine another time to look at what's wrong. And this time he changed the piston rings and the valve guides because he didn't want to take any risks. Of course, the second engine rebuild, he didn't charge me money, being a fair guy. And after that, the car is now perfect. So even after going through all that drama, what do I still think about this car? Do I still like it? Well, I think the answer is in the fact that I'm driving this car instead of any other car on this trip with my friends in the northeast of Thailand. As you can see, most of the cars that are on this trip are way higher performing than this car. And I'm able to keep up with them. And I'm pretty sure I'm having the most fun because this is the only car that is a manual here, except for the Silica somewhere in the back. I thought about selling this car when I was going through all the troubles. You know, it's natural because you just rebuilt the engine and then now it's drinking oil and then you feel stressed. But now that the car is working fine and near perfectly, I also gave it a few more upgrades. So I got a newer steering wheel. This is the Momo tuner wheel. And honestly, I did not expect just changing the steering wheel to kind of, I don't want to say transform, but it definitely improved the driving feel of the car. Now the steering feels heavier. Before, I would almost complain that the steering is probably the weakest link of this car because it's just a tad bit light. But now it's perfect. Maybe because of the smaller radius, there's a lot more weight to it. I also decided to get the Defi gauges, which one is supposed to be for water temp, but I haven't installed it yet because I just did this the night before the trip. The only gauge that's working is the oil temp, which for me is the main thing that I want to look at. This right here is the oil pressure, which the sensor that I got doesn't seem to be working, so when I go back I need to get another one. But for now, at least I have oil temp to look at. One of the biggest flaws of this car that I would like to address is the fact that, okay, I did mention the dashboard is very clean. The lack of information kind of allows you to focus purely on driving. But if you don't know the oil temp or the oil pressure in a performance car, that could be a very risky business. On modern cars, not this car, but on newer cars, where they have those sensors to kind of overlook everything, that's okay. But on this car from the factory did not have an oil temp sensor, did not have an oil pressure sensor, and so there's no way for both the driver and the car to know that, hey, the oil is getting too hot, you need to slow down. And from the factory, if you don't know that and you're driving on the track, you're caning it really hard, you don't know if you're damaging the engine. And so that's what I would say is kind of the biggest flaw of this car. But it's a small flaw because it's easy to fix. All you gotta do is install some gauges. You don't need to use this, you could use something else. And so now that I know what the oil temperature is, I can drive without worrying that I'm gonna damage the engine. So what is it about this car that keeps bringing me back to it? Well, pardon me, I'm trying to drive and talk at the same time. It's the fact that it does everything so well. First we have the engine. This K20 is probably the best 4-cylinder NA engine ever made. It's so characterful, so fizzy. Okay, some may say that it lacks torque, but you just gotta rev it out. And in its current tune, with the new pistons, I don't think it lacks torque, man. It's more than enough for this car. Considering that this is a front wheel drive, at 200 something horsepower, it's more than enough. Almost 300 horsepower this car is making. Then we have the steering, the chassis. It's so light and playful. This is the best front engine, front wheel drive ever made, in my opinion. It's so easy to drive. You can just chuck it anywhere. It's so easy to place on the road. The road manners are so good. And with the dampers on this car, it's so compliant, so comfortable, but so much grip at the same time. And you still know how much grip is in each of the tires. Handling is just great. Like, I'm keeping up with all these bigger cars in the front with big engines. The V8, there's a W12 in the Bentley, and of course there's the GT3 all the way in the front. All the inputs are nice and consistent. The clutch is not too light. The brake is nice and firm. The throttle is also a bit firmer than most of the other Hondas in the past. I just feel like this car is such a complete package. And at the end of the day, you still have 4 doors. You can still carry your family to go shopping. But when you push it, this car screams like no other car. It's such a great car. The steering is as good as the Mitsubishi Evos. In fact, I would say there's more feel to it as well. It's very fast. You don't need to turn it so much. Most of these corners, I don't need to go hand over hand. The most that I need to turn is just like that, and I'm good. Oh, and the pedal placement makes it so easy to heel toe. The engine is so responsive. The brakes never fade. I mean, not yet. I have new brake pads on this, maybe that's why, and new brake fluids. But this car can just keep on going all day. The oil temp right now is not even over 100. It's just such a great car. I don't need to rev it out all the way. I think around 5 to 7 is kind of the sweet spot for now. I'm not in a race. We're just having fun. In some ways, maybe spiritually speaking, I feel like this car is kind of similar to the GT4 RS when it comes to the engine. It has that ferocity and the way that it climaxes all the way to redline. It's very similar. I would guess that the torque curve probably looks similar. Of course, the 4RS would have a lot more torque, but just looking at their shape, I think it would be kind of similar. If you've never driven one of these, let me just tell you, this car is truly, truly special. If Honda has a GT division, the Type R would be it. In terms of its philosophy and the way that it does things, its controls, it's all very similar to Porsche's very own GT division. And that is why I have become somewhat of a Type R fanboy in the past, just because, purely because of this car. And now I want more Type Rs in my life. I want to explore what Type R is really about by trying all the other Type Rs. And I shall make it kind of like a mission of mine maybe not to own every Type R, but to at least try every Type R. And of course, the holy grail would be the NSX Type R. Anyway, enough talking for now. I'm gonna shut up and just let you guys enjoy the drive in some of the best roads in Thailand. Chasing a GTS and a GT3. And being chased by a Maserati Quattroporte. This is ridiculous. Alright, I think that's good enough for now. Thank you guys for watching, and hope by now you'll be sold that the FD2 is truly a force to be reckoned with. Bye guys.